Welcome back, everybody. We are still working with color, obviously. I just wanted to show you another approach to the color value scale that we're working on for our preliminary exercises. What I've done here is kind of collect up some of the elements that I was painting on in the earlier demos. So you can see that I've got my primary colors here. I am making increasingly dark shades by adding black, increasingly light tints by adding white. In these sections here, I have in the center my secondary colors, green, my purple, and my orange. And I've also created on either side of those my tertiary colors by adding more of one of the base colors. So we have a purple that goes more toward red, so this would be red-violet. This goes more toward the blue. We've got a blue-violet there. Same thing with the greens and the oranges. The first color video that I did, I also took photographs of the base colors that I had from my set of yellow, blue, and red, put them into a grayscale and printed them out. So this value here is essentially the grayscale version of the yellow that I was able to achieve with the paints that I had. So by using this, I could gauge other colors in terms of how close they are in proximity to this particular value. So this particular purple would probably work pretty well to match up vertically in that column that goes along with my yellow. You can see clearly this green is too dark to match this. This area in here, somewhere in that range, seems to be just about the right tint of my base green that would be about equivalent to the same value of my base yellow. So you could use this as kind of a mechanical means by making essentially a gradient with each of your colors, creating a little value window. You could then isolate the section you want, trace it, and then use scissors or an X-Acto knife to cut it out and paste them together. Now, of course, another way of doing it would be simply to mix the colors optically, changing them by eye as you go, and that's what I did primarily on this version. So you can see that I do have my lighter tints above, my darker shades below in this orientation, and you can see that we're trying to approximate the same level of value across each one of those sections. Once we've played with what colors we can achieve with our paints that we've purchased, we're moving on to the design phase for the formal design project. So I did these with colored papers because I wanted to be able to show you as many options as possible. You'll be doing yours with paint. Your dimensions will be slightly different, but you get the basic idea. This was my sort of main focus. I'm interested primarily in artwork that involves a high degree of contrast. I do black and white woodblock printing. In my painting, I tend to emphasize complementary color contrast. So I chose a split complement as my main focus for the main design I was working on. So this piece is a split complement. The base is blue, but rather than go directly across the color wheel to orange, I'm using both yellow-orange and red-orange as my split complement. Above that, I wanted to show you again the basic complementary pairs that we think of most frequently. You have with your primaries, remember, your complement will always be a secondary. So red's complement will be green, yellow's complement will be violet, blue's complement will be orange. We also have complementary pairs within the tertiaries. So yellow, green, and red, violet create a complementary pair, red, orange, and blue, green, and yellow, orange, and blue, violet. So really any of those would work as complementary color scheme base ideas. But you'll have a little more range, I think, if you play with the split complements. So the split complement here, again, that I chose was blue paired with yellow, orange, and red, orange. But you do have other options. Again, thinking back to our primary as the base, moving from blue to red and then to yellow. If I was to choose red, then the split complement there would be my blue-green and yellow-green. If I was to go with a base yellow, my split complements would be a blue-violet, red-violet. Those are the tertiary variations of the secondary color that is the complement of your primary base. We also, of course, can create split complementary groupings with the secondary colors as well. So if I go with a base orange, the split complements there would be a blue-green and a blue-violet. If I go with a base of my violet, then my split complements would be yellow-orange, yellow-green. If I go with a base of green, the split complements here would be my red-orange, red-violet. We can go even a little bit further and work with the tertiary colors. So thinking of orange, if I start to modify that, I would either have a yellow-orange or a red-orange. So my yellow-orange base would give me a split complement of blue and violet. My red-orange is associated with a split complement of blue and green. Thinking of violet as my starting base, if I go with red-violet or blue-violet, I have two different groupings. With red-violet, my split complement would be yellow and green. With my blue-violet, the split complement would be yellow and orange. The last one here in our split complements is based off of the green as our base secondary color. So here I have a blue-green and here I have my yellow-green. And with the blue-green base, my split complement would be orange or red. With my yellow-green, we've got red and violet. So really any of these would provide you with quite a lot of range to play with. Probably the easiest type of color scheme to work with is this one here. So since I gave myself a big challenge, I picked one that was kind of easy. This is my monochromatic. So mono, of course, means one, chroma means color. So a monochromatic color scheme is going to be any one of the colors in your spectrum, tints and shades, lighter and darker variations within there. A more ambitious version might be here. These are analogous groups, and with analogous colors, we're looking at colors that are side by side on the color wheel. The most basic division would be this one, analogous with the cool colors, your greens, blues, purples, or with your warms, reds, oranges, and yellows. Probably more ambitious would be to fall into this range here, where I have analogous groups that include some warms and some cools. So this one has one warm color and two cools. Yellow, of course, is next to both green and blue on the color wheel. So these colors will work really well together, but it gives us a little more variety, a little more to play with in terms of contrast of warm and cool. So an analogous with one warm and two cool would be an interesting one to try. You could try one warm and two cool here with red paired up with violet and blue. We can go the other way and go for a more warm color scheme with a cool accent. Two warms and one cool. In this case, I have orange-red with the contrast of violet, and here I have yellow and orange with the contrast of green. Another complex arrangement that might be interesting to you would be your triads, colors that are equally far apart on the color wheel. The most obvious triad, and I would ask you to kind of avoid this one because it's just a little too basic, red, yellow, blue. The primary colors obviously create a triad themselves. A more complex one for us might be the secondary colors, violet, green, and orange. But really the bigger challenges are right here. I chose this one, the tertiary triad that includes yellow-orange, red-violet, and blue-green. The other tertiary triad that you might want to explore would be yellow-green, red, orange, blue, violet. So again, I gave you kind of all of the possible options, but thinking of it in terms of your project, this would be sort of my main design, and then these are my four variations. So again, I chose a split complement as my main color scheme, and for my variations, I picked a monochromatic, analogous cool, analogous that has one warm and two cools, and then a tertiary triad. So this should give you a good visual example of things that you could think about in terms of what colors you might find pleasing to one another. But I also wanted to lay out for you the kind of range of possibilities. I imagine if you play with a split complement, you'll have a lot more options to work with. Same thing when you get into your analogous and into your triads. Those are probably the more complex ones. The slightly easier ones, obviously, are going to be analogous that are simply warm or cool, or the monochromatic. So have fun challenge yourself, try to make something visually interesting, and think about the colors that are most pleasing to you as you're contemplating your color scheme.